So, you're thinking about buying a house and you're wondering about this great buyer agent that you found helping you with the transaction, and suddenly you wonder, hey, how does this buyer agent get paid? Why are they working with you? What's their motivation for helping us buy this house? How do they get paid? Is it the real estate commission? Is it the buyer agent's company, the listing agent's company, the seller, or the buyer? I'll be real honest with you. Most agents don't want to talk about this subject, and I think it's really, really important. I think it's critical that everyone understand where the buyer agent's fees, commissions come from. And it's a critical conversation to have with both sellers and buyers. So stick and stay and watch this video. I'm going to reveal to you the secret workings behind buyer agent commissions. Folks, please like, comment, and subscribe for more information about what's happening in the real estate market here in Chapel Hill, Durham, and Raleigh. Okay, buyer agent commissions, where do they come from? Well, the funny thing is, everybody pays. I know that's kind of silly and simplistic, but the reality is that buyer agent commissions, just like listing agent commissions, are part of the deal. It's part of the transaction. That said, the buyer agent commission, it should be said, just like the listing agent commission, is totally negotiable. All right, that's important to remember. And it's important to say that 99% of the time, the buyer agent commission, strangely enough, is paid by the seller of the transaction. Even with a for sale by owner, usually the buyer agent commission is paid by the seller of the transaction. Certainly with 99% of the houses that are listed in our MLS, buyer agent commission is paid by the seller. So that's a little bit of a weird situation. You must wonder, okay, well, wait a minute. Here the buyer agent is representing me in terms of buying this house, but the buyer agent is being paid by the seller? That seems like a conflict of interest, to be real honest with you. And this is the difficult part of the conversation that most agents don't want to have, whether they're buyer agents or listing agents. The reality is that even though that's where the money comes from, originally from the seller, the buyer agent still has a fiduciary duty to their clients, which are the buyers. Which means, technically speaking, the buyer's agent has to put the buyer's best interest ahead of their own. And that means literally sometimes if you get paid nothing, you got to do the deal. That's what the word fiduciary means. In reality, things are a little bit different. The amount of commission that's offered to a buyer agent certainly can impact the situation in the transaction and what happens. What I mean by this is that it's actually the listing agent's responsibility to talk to the seller of that house to talk about, well, how much buyer agent commission should we offer to all those buyer agents out there in the Triangle market for them to see your house, bring buyers to the house, and potentially do a deal. Honestly speaking, this is a conversation that I have with our sellers every single time because I think it's critical. The amount of buyer agent commission that's offered to the buyer agent, unfortunately, because it's human nature, it affects the saleability of that house. We see commissions here in the Triangle area offered at 3%, 2.5%, a number of them are 2.4%. It's actually quite rare that it goes below 2.4, but it does happen. And that's the thing, is you have to put yourself in the buyer agent's shoes. At some point, it becomes critical. It becomes something you just can't do. If a seller is offering 2% or 1.5% or 1%, or literally nothing, the buyer agent has to think about, well, can I do this deal? Is it going to pay me enough to actually follow through and do this transaction? It's unfortunate that buyer agents are put in that position, but that's the reality because everything is negotiable. And what that means is that if a buyer agent sees a 1.5% commission, generally speaking, the buyer agent is going to have to go to their buyers and say, hey, I hate to say this, but this one seller for this one house is offering less than 2.4, 2.5%, or 3%, whatever the buyer agent thinks is appropriate. I'm going to ask you to make up the difference. And then it becomes a question of how valuable is that buyer agent to the buyer buying that house. It puts the onus on the buyer agent to explain their value to the buyer of that house. Great buyer agents are able to demonstrate their value to their buyers, and usually this is not a problem. That said, it quite rarely happens. It's all market driven, to be honest with you. In a hot market where houses are selling like hotcakes, we see buyer agent commissions coming down. In fact, quite frankly, builders lead the way on this. A couple of years ago when houses were selling like crazy and there were multiple offers everywhere and builders were like, they had buyers lined up to buy their houses. Builders literally not only reduced their buyer agent commissions from the typical 2.5% to 2 and then 1 and then like $2,000, $1,000 and then none. While they were doing that, a year or two later, when houses were not selling like hotcakes, the builders all turned around and said, "Oh my gosh, we got to offer 2.5% again. Oh, let's offer 3. Oh my gosh, let's offer 3.5%, 4%." I've seen builders offer 5% and even more to the buyer agents during a slow market when things are just not selling. It's all about motivating that buyer agent to do their job. And keep in mind, it's not just one buyer agent. It's literally hundreds, if not thousands of buyer agents looking in the MLS every day, trying to find a house for their buyers. At the end of the day, the buyer agent commission is 99% of the time paid by the seller, but it's kind of baked into the deal. It's baked, the seller has to consider they're paying a listing agent commission, they're also paying a buyer agent commission, and then they're paying a few other expenses of sale, like paying for an attorney, paying off their loan, paying for taxes, whatnot. And then there's all of that is deducted from the top, deducted from the sale price, and then whatever's left over is their net. Oh, they got to pay off their mortgage too. Don't forget about that. Sellers have to consider all these expenses when they set their asking price. So that's kind of baked into the sale, one way or the other, where even though the seller's paying it technically at closing, the buyer is actually bringing the money to the closing and paying for all of that. So really, like I said in the beginning of this video, at the end of the day, everybody's paying for the buyer agent commission. That's the way it works, folks. That's the way it works here in North Carolina and all over the U.S. Really brings up the subject of the value of the buyer agent, and I'm afraid I will tackle that subject here in another video. So go ahead and subscribe so you can get notified about when I do a video about buyer agency and how that works, what the value is to the buyer, and in fact, what the value is to the seller too. We'll see about that, okay? Thanks for your time, I really appreciate it. My name's Armand, Realtor with Team Armand EXP Realty. Thanks.